Buenos dias, mi amigos. That is the extent of my Spanish. And I just want to say, welcome to another episode of A Taboo Life, where everyone has a story to tell. I'm your host, Drew Franks, or Frank for short, and I want to thank you guys again for listening. Come check out our website, ataboolife.com, where you can read some fantastic articles, short stories, poems, because I am that sappy, and other episodes of the podcast too. So check it out at ataboolife.com. And also, I am supported by viewers like you, or listeners like you. Yes, this is a PBS moment. If you guys love the episode, please subscribe and also go to their website and send some love my way. Leave $1, leave $2. That's all I'm asking for because I want to keep these episodes for free, but I need some gas money to get to my guest. So don't forget to subscribe and send $1 my way. A great example of which is today's guest, Mr. James Elwood Hanna. I had to travel to Savannah, Georgia for this episode, but I am so happy I did. We had a great conversation about his life as a stunt performer. You may have seen a couple of the movies he's been in, such as Casino Royale, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity Way, and some other movies that you'll hear during this episode. Fantastic guy. He lived a great life, and I just think he has one of the coolest jobs in the world. I really think he does. So here's the episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. I take a nice little road trip up here to Georgia for this interview, but I've been wanting to do this specifically for you since I met you for a while. Yeah. Like, you've been in the back of my mind for a while. I was like, man, this will be a great story to get.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have you introduce yourself and tell people what you do.
Okay, so so my name is Jason Elwood Hanna, and I am a stunt performer.
Stunt performer, aka a stunt man,
and aka stunt man.
Stuntman.
And it's interesting because, like, coming up, I was always told not to refer to myself as a stunt man because, in there's kind of generations of stunt performers, right, and stunt men, and the older veterans or whatever, they wanted, as time went on, they wanted to coin that term stunt man for more veterans who've been in the industry for like maybe 20 years and above, something like that. So the old school guys are really like, they don't like everyone calling themselves stuntmen. So I've gotten to the habit of just saying, you know what, I'm a stunt performer, because we are actors as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it's like
we are performing.
Kind of like a rite of passage. Like once you meet like a certain criteria, like, okay, I'm a stuntman now.
Yeah. And if you ever find out what that criteria is, you let me know, because I'm still not sure. But yeah,
I got that like 20 movies already. What the hell? I almost got blown up at the last one.
Exactly.
So obviously, how did you get started in this?
Yeah. So let's see where we start off. There's a long version of the story, and then there's a short version. But
the long one. Yeah.
Let's try from the beginning. But I've always been a very active kid. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like, and it's when I look at other kids and I see those similar patterns, I'm like, okay, this person will go into an athletic field. And there's certain things that you look for. So as a kid, I would climb trees and I would jump down, and I just couldn't stay still. I had my brother was did martial arts for a really long time. And so whenever I was very young, maybe 4 or 5 years old, before I even know who I am, before I was in school, I would be doing the same drills that he would be doing at his martial arts class, and I wanted to learn as much martial arts and movement as possible. So like, it was very common for my mother to be like, oh, that's dangerous, stop doing that. I was like, it's not dangerous, it's just, it's fun. And so I was one of those kids, popping wheelies on their bikes and like on their bicycles and, pretty always outside type of kid. Yeah. And so that kind of led into, like I was saying, I alluded to martial arts. Mm-hmm. So at about 12 or 13, I started martial arts. And I started gymnastics, a little backyard gymnastics. Really, yeah.
AKA, you taught yourself a backflip.
Pretty much, yeah. and just like meet other gymnasts, and they would teach me, but it was never something formal.
Yeah.
But what I started doing was around 15 or 16. I think the internet was starting to become a thing, and so back then. You would have there was a new form of martial arts entertainment coming out, and it was called tricking or extreme martial arts.
What's trick? Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Explain.
Yeah, so tricking or extreme martial arts is the better term for it now. What it was back in the 90s, there was a team called the West Coast Action Team. I think that was one of the first big teams that did tricking, and what it did was it took the most acrobatic and most flashy movements of martial arts and try to put it together with martial art forms. So if you've done martial arts, right? You've done a bit of jiu-jitsu. I think we talked about it earlier.
Taekwondo when I was a kid, jiu-jitsu, and Muay Thai.
And Muay Thai, yeah. So you should know, especially from the Taekwondo background, there are certain forms that you do to kind of sharpen, and sometimes it's for performance as well. Mm-hmm. So what these guys thought, kind of originated in California and then really spread worldwide, was what if we took just the most flashiest things from Taekwondo, the flashiest things from Capoeira, flashiest things from gymnastics, and let's see if we can put those in our forms. And they came up with a new kind of thing for martial arts, and if you go to YouTube right now and you put in tricking, you'll see guys just doing all kind of crazy twists with kicks in it and and wushu things, and so it's kind of a bit of like that. So about 14 or 15, I started getting really deep into these forms, into these tricking forms and movements, and I just started learning martial art after martial art. So what tends to happen when you do that is you start to meet other people in the community. It was a small community back then. This was like maybe 18 years ago.
And where was this at?
Where was this? Oh, sorry. My background too. So I was born in the Bahamas.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah. So that wasn't even in the United States. So I was born in the Bahamas, and I grew up in the Bahamas, in Nassau, Bahamas. For anyone who's gone there for vacation or whatever, very interesting place. And just with the internet and a few buddies, we started doing tricking forms. And what tends to happen is you want to get out there and you want people to know, hey, I can do these things. So eventually that took me, after years of training in these forms, it took me to Canada, to Vancouver, Canada. Ooh. Yeah, so a buddy that I met online, he was also a tricker, and he was also a tracer. Tracer is a free runner. That's the guys who do parkour and free running, and they flip from building to building, whatever. But back then, it was really it just left France, right? So because not to jump all over the place, but the migration of parkour was France to London, and then London to Canada, and I was part of the third generation back then. Yeah. So anyway, so going back to this, so I went over to Vancouver, Canada, and I started training with those guys. And my buddy back then, his dad was a stunt performer. And I think that was the first time that I was being introduced into this world. And so he would, he would tell me, show me the ropes. He was like, okay, well, you won't be a stunt performer today, but one day if you're looking into getting into it, this is the training that we did. And I trained in stunt work from back then. Ooh. Yeah, that was about 18, 17 years ago. And so after that, I still lived in the Bahamas at the time, but I would just travel very frequently to Canada. And eventually we got good enough to consider ourselves an action team. And we started putting on live shows, throughout Canada, and the Caribbean, and some parts of South America.
What was the show? Like, what type of action?
Yeah, well, our team was called the Zanshin Stunts and Zanshin Parkour. Mm-hmm. So we would just do live shows for one of the shows was something called the Cacique Awards. So we would just do like acrobatics and like any dance competitions or whatever. We would be like opening acts. And I do remember one time in Vancouver, we opened up a club. It was like a special night club scene, and We just did like little odd shows like that, and that was a bit of experience too. And what I'm learning now is that a lot of stunt performers go that route. They usually end up in live performance first, something like medieval times, or right now Marvel Universe is a big employer.
Oh, not the ice skating show, but like there are those big shows they have in arenas.
Yeah, in the big arenas, and everyone's just watching all this craziness happen. Yeah, and like people fighting and like flipping all over the place as the characters. Yeah, so it's kind of like that. And so I did a lot of live shows, and my really first big stunt job was actually Casino Royale.
What?
Yeah, you remember that? Do you remember that opening free running scene?
I watched YouTube the other day because I thought it was so cool.
Yeah,
like with the parkour and Daniel Craig.
Yeah, Daniel Craig and the like black guy, short black guy. Mm-hmm. That's Sebastian Faucon, and he's he was pretty much he's the godfather of the whole free running movement. Yeah, he really pushed it back then. Him and David Bell, and I met him, and I was part of that team. Yeah, they shot that in Nassau in the Bahamas. Yeah,
no way.
Yeah, they shot that whole scene. So we spent 3 months putting together that scene with the main stunt crew, and that was my kind of first introduction into real stunt work with an actual crew on set, and all this other stuff. So that was really cool. Yeah.
So were you there as a coordinator, or were you actually doing one of the stunts?
Not a coordinator. I was part of the team, the choreography team. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Right. And they also had us as backup. So in case the main actor injured himself, my team would step in and kind of fill in those gaps.
Back shots, basically you running.
Yeah, exactly. And that's typically for double work, And so so that definitely kicked the door open. It was at that point that I knew that I had to pursue this thing. So fast forward, especially when you first get started, it's a very slow start because it's such a dangerous job. No one really gives you a chance. And not only that, I was a Bahamian, not living in the United States, not living in Europe, not living in Canada per se.
Yeah.
But there is something within the Commonwealth which allows us to work in other Commonwealth countries for a short period of time.
Okay.
So you're familiar with the Commonwealth? Do you know what?
Puerto Rico's a Commonwealth too. It's a territory.
It's a U.S. territory.
US territory.
But the Commonwealth is referring to the British Commonwealth. So there's a lot of countries that still have the Queen as their head.
Yeah, like Tortola. St. Thomas is American.
There is the UK Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, right?
What was Tortola then? Okay, I'm sorry.
You might be right. My geography is the crap right now.
I used to work on a cruise ship. I'm pretty sure. Tortola is British.
Yeah, British is I think that's in the Antilles, right? In those string of anyway. So there's a bunch of countries. Once you're in the Commonwealth, it's easier to move and work in those countries for a short period of time. You kind of get like it's called a holiday visa. And so that allowed me to live in London for about a year and Vancouver for about a year or two. And it was that time that I trained even harder, learning more stunt. Because stunt work is very specific. It's not something that you can kind of hornshoe in. It's really strange in that way. So you might be an expert gymnast. It doesn't add up one for one with stunt work. And it's really strange, yeah.
Because you need a mix of background.
There's a bit of acting involved and a bit of naturalness to your movement.
Oh, okay.
That the hard disciplines kind of. You would think that if you're a world-class gymnast, you would make a really good stunt performer. But actually, what it does is it wires your brain and your body in such a way that everything's too perfect, too clean.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see. Like you miss those little idiosyncrasies, like those little natural movements.
Perfect. Exactly. Perfect way of doing it. And that takes time. That's a whole nother discipline in its own. So you kind of take...
That nonverbal communication. Like you need your arm to move a certain way.
Yeah. And it's really, kind of relaxed look to it. It's really kind of strange. And when I first started, there's like, it's too smooth. I was like, what do you mean it's too smooth? It's like, I can't even hear you. I would hit the ground. You wouldn't hear a sound because I did jiu-jitsu for a long time.
Oh, okay.
And all we do is hit the ground. So I knew how to break my fall, whatever. So we need that safety, but you need to messy it up. It needs to look like a normal person that's fell down and really hurt themselves. So that took some time. But yeah, so after a few years, more years of training, more years of meeting people, I met my wife actually because of stunt work. And we decided to move to the U.S. from, at the time I was back and forth between Canada and the Bahamas. And she was, pretty much in Canada at the time. And we just, we decided to move back to the U.S. and about 5-6 years ago. And first stop was West Coast. So I lived in L.A. for a little bit. Yeah. She lived in Washington for a little bit.
Ooh, Washington.
Yeah, Washington State. And 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 then I eventually made the move to Atlanta. And I've been
the new Hollywood, right?
The new Hollywood is the new. Well, there we can talk about that later.
Yeah,
too.
we'll talk about. Well, we'll continue with this part.
Yeah, and so I've been in Atlanta for the past 4-5 years, and I'm working mainly out of Atlanta as a stunt performer. But that gets me traveling around the place too. I've worked in New York and LA and all around the country, so I've been pretty fortunate, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Did you go through the I'm pretty sure you have, but did you go through like a starving artist phase while you're doing this work? Like you had times where you had a.
It's always it's almost always like that. Like so yeah.
We plan for it.
Yeah. So
it's okay. So you can say something.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so we it's interesting. I always plan. I'm a planner.
It's like just let you guys know. His wife is here listening to the recording, so you probably hear her chime in every once in a while.
Yeah. She's welcome to. Yeah.
Yeah, she's welcome to. But if you got something really interesting to say, then come over here and talk in the mic so we can hear you clearly.
So, what's the last thing I said? Sorry,
we're talking about the starving artist phase.
Yes, the starving artist phase. So, I'm a pretty big planner. So I was always ahead of the curve when it came to the starting phase, but it is definitely a thing. If you're going into acting, anything to do with performance, you have to be comfortable with knowing that you don't know when your next job is going to come, and not a lot of people can do this. That's why I tend to say people that are wealthy. So I don't usually more wealthy kids go into acting because they really could afford to.
Yeah, they could take the risk.
It takes time. Yeah. But there's times that I struggled where I'm like, not really, and that's because I always
had a plan in place.
I always had a plan in place or a backup plan, and I always had a second job, and even now I teach. Oh, yeah, I'm a stunt performer, but I also teach as well.
What do you teach
in Savannah? I teach a bit of ninjutsu, and I'm trying.
Ninjutsu,
cool. And I'm trying to help a friend out with capoeira. So I'm.
What was capoeira again?
Capoeira? What is it?
Yeah, what was that? I forgot.
That's a Brazilian, Afro-Brazilian martial art. It looks kind of like a dance.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's like a. It was. I remember it was in
Only the Strong. Do you remember that movie?
No. Oh my God! What?
Tekken?
Not Iron Fist. Luke Cage.
Yes.
What do you call it? The bad guy, Bushmaster.
Bushmaster.
He was doing capoeira.
Yeah, I worked on that too. I worked on Luke Cage too. Yeah, but not as that guy. I was in Bushmaster's double.
We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, so even now I kind of teach on the side, and I always, like I said, that's the key. I think if you're going into performance. That's why the term, don't quit your day job. I really do know what that means now. It hits,
It's like, well, I got backup. I'm fine.
Yeah. And it's like, it's always, I know some very famous actors and actresses, they have their kind of side thing that they do too. And it's always,
smart.
It's smart, yeah, to always have kind of a side business so you don't find yourself kind of stuck in that. But, but in relation to that, there was, you would expect me, there are times where you kind of doubt, you're like, well, is this the path that I should be going in, or should I give up or whatever? I'm very fortunate to say that I never really had an instance like that per se. And I think that's the key. That's the key to all the listeners and everything. If they were thinking of doing kind of stunt work or acting or anything like that, it's not something that you can give up on. And that's why typically the most passionate people usually make it. Because it takes years sometimes to kind of build that reputation.
The perseverance and resilience.
Yeah. And it takes time. It's a democracy. I think that someone described it to me. The film industry kind of like that.
Really?
Yeah. It's not in a normal day job. You kind of have one boss, and you have one chain of command that you answer to. You have your manager, and you have regional and you have CEOs. But in the film industry, your boss changes job to job.
Yeah.
So what happens is your reputation carries you through. So if you do a good job on one thing,
You get recommended.
you get recommended to the other job. And the more recommendations that you have, the more likely you're going to get a job.
So it doesn't pay to be a diva.
No,
basically.
it doesn't. But it's interesting too because, especially from the acting side, as main celebrity actors, they get more. It's about respect as well.
Mm-hmm.
So those that demand respect and they know their worth, they also tend to make it pretty far too. It's just something that's expected. They're seen as more professional or just a better deal, I guess. Yeah.
Because you mentioned Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is like the moment you knew like the whole Hollywood thing was going to pan out, was going to work? Was there a specific moment or just like a specific set that you're working on?
That's an interesting question.
That you're like, man, this is it.
Yeah, even now, like it's like it's really weird, man. Like, first off, I'm really fortunate because I get to work, fairly busy. I'm a fairly busy guy.
Yeah.
Like I work tomorrow. I think I was telling you that on a show that we'll mention later. But a particular time where I was like, okay, that this will work. Do you know, it was actually a job that I didn't get, I think.
Really?
So I moved to LA. So it was okay. So it's more so than a job, maybe an instance in time.
Okay.
That thought came to me. I was like, this is going to pan out. So I was living in LA at the time. I can't remember which year, 2015, 16, something like that. And if you live in LA, it's highly competitive. There's like super competitive. I can't even, wow. And I think I met a stunt rigger. He was like a rigger is someone who sets up like let's say an engineer, a kind of stunt engineer that sets up certain things for a stunt. And I met him, and he saw me training, and he pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, you want to go have a beer or something?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I started hanging out with this guy. His name was Mike Washlick, and he also had another guy with him, another stunt performer who's been working in the industry for years. And they just had a very big interest in me. And they wanted to say, oh, you do this and you do that or whatever. And they wanted to know so much more about me. And one of the guys, stunt guys, he was like, you know what? I'm going to recommend you to this really nice lady. She kind of interconnects. She passed now. Her name was Missy. But she was really deep in the stunt community in LA. And she was like, hey, why don't you sign up for her service and I'll tell her about you and whatever. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I had a talk with her and she seemed really interested. And after I did that, I started getting calls for jobs. Yeah. And so I was like, wow, well, clearly there's something special about me. And remember, at this point, I'm kind of fresh to LA. Usually it takes 5 to 10 years to get recommendations in LA because it's so competitive.
Yeah, so many people.
And every day there are more and more performers moving there. So it's getting crazier and crazier. But LA is the place to be, especially if you're an actor or a performer, because that's where all the money kind of gets sorted out whenever they make these big decisions or who is starring in what or whatever. And so when I start getting those calls, I was like, wow, there's something to it. But here's the catch. I was not, you have to be part of the union, the Screen Actors Guild. I was not. I was not part of the Screen Actors Guild at that time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so when they heard that, it was kind of like, hey, yeah, we need you to work tomorrow because we saw your stunt reel and we talked to Missy and you were highly recommended and so hey, can you work this Thursday? And I'm like, yeah, I can, but I'm not union. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get that union card. And they're like, oh, okay, well, sorry. Click. So that was a disappointing thing. But I do remember like I was getting like in one particular month. I got like 4 or 5 calls. And it was at that point, I was like, whoa, okay, everyone thinks that I am a super veteran, super hardcore guy. There must be some worth to me, right?
Yeah, right outside 80, like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. I was like, so I think it was around that time, I was like, yeah, this will work. It'll take time. Because there is a process to become union, which I eventually did. I am union now. But, and that's when you play with the big boys, I guess, when you're union at those big films and big TV shows and stuff. And so it was at that instance that I knew. That's around 2015, 2016. I was like, okay, this is the path. Yeah,
This is it.
yep, this is it. I'll stick to it. And my longest run has definitely been Black Panther, and we shot that in 2016. Yeah,
Where did they film that? Did they film?
no, 2017, early 2017. What's that?
Did they film that at mainly Atlanta, or was it?
Yeah.
Did they travel out of the country for that?
So they shot in about 90% in Atlanta, and probably 10%, maybe some exterior shots in actual, mainland Africa. But they put a lot of work into making that authentic. I'll say that.
Yeah, I was wondering that. Like, it's a pretty good scenery there.
Yeah, they went to Korea as well. Yep.
For that one scene.
The casino scene.
Scene.
That was actually done in South Korea. Yep. And but most of it, about 85 to 90%, was definitely in Atlanta, either blue screen or they rented out about 1,000 acres. I kid you not, about 1,000 acres of land, and set designers to make those scenes happen. And that was a fun time. I was on that for about 3 months, and then I was on Avengers for another 2 months, and Endgame for another month. So yeah, I was working. Yeah, definitely working that year. Marvel was my employer that year. Yep.
So what for the listeners? Because I know because the last time we talked, you mentioned it. What did you do on the set for Black Panther and Avengers?
Yeah.
What role did you play?
So I was part of the Wakanda stunt team.
So cool.
Yeah. So pretty much it was about I would say 15 guys, like black guys, different heights, different looks. And whenever you saw pretty much a Wakandan, it was one of those 15 guys that took it. And it's very subtle things. So some of the things that definitely stood out to you remember those big battles, those big clashes?
The rhino ones?
Yeah, like with the rhino and then people flying all over the place. And then you go watch that movie again. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in those scenes. Cool. Yeah. You as a viewer, you tend to focus on the main characters, but if you look in the back and whatever, you'll see people flying, explosions going off, and we were. I think we took about 2 months to put those battle scenes together. Yeah, there's a lot of footage that they didn't use either, but yeah.
How long? Before I forget this question, how long does it usually take on average to set up a stunt scene? Like the preparation, like. Actually, no. Can you walk me through the process of setting up one?
Well, it really depends on the stunt scene. It depends on the stunt and the circumstances of the scene. So it can take. It can take that same day. You come on that day and you do a stunt. You get paid and you go home. Yeah. And sometimes the stunt takes weeks to set up and prepare for, and sometimes scenes take months. Yeah. So maybe I'll see if I can give you just a quick rundown of all three things. So like maybe last week I worked on a Steven Spielberg produced show. I don't think I can say what name it was, but
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what genre it is by chance?
It is. I feel like it's kind of like Black Mirror, where they try to tell interesting stories. Yeah, but I don't know. It's so secretive. I don't know if it's sci-fi based, but it's just really strange stories.
I wonder if he's going back to that show I used to watch as a kid that he made.
What's that?
It was a really good show. It was similar to Twilight Zone in a way.
Yeah.
It was similar to that, but it was more fantastical than sci-fi.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember the name? Maybe it's.
I have to look it up while we're doing this.
Cool. Well, I'll go through what I did in the meantime. So, for that scene, we were, and I'll show you the video later, but we were, the scene had donuts, right? 2 cars are doing donuts in a parking lot, underground parking lot.
Yeah.
And, so I was just one of the guys, spectators, and there's something called a near miss. And, so I was just one of the guys where, the car just barely misses them. So, that's an example of a stunt that's
Amazing Stories.
Oh, okay.
That was the name of the show. It came on when came on. And I'm sorry, my phone just messed up. Came on during the 80s.
Yeah. So it could be something similar to that. Mm-hmm. So so that's an example of like a one-day shoot. And then let me go back a little further with these other ones. So for Luke Cage, do you remember? There's a scene. I don't know if you watched the latest season 2.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. So the I think it might have been episode 12 or something. There was a scene where Bushmaster just runs upstairs and just tearing up the place in the nightclub.
Yeah.
So I was part of that team too.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I was actually, if you look at I was the first guy that got pulled. I got pulled on a wire into a wall.
And I gotta rewatch it now.
Yeah, and we did a previs for that and everything. That took about a week. So that was a week to put together that shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have bigger scenes like in Black Panther. Mm. That took better yet, Casino Royale, the free running scene. That entire scene took about 2 months. It was for 5 minutes, and we shot that for 2. We shot in pre-plan. We were in pre-production.
Was it the training also too, or
no? That was all. It's just it was just that everything has to be perfect, every variable. And then the other thing is that usually when you shoot maybe 3 to 4 times as much footage. As that is intended, and what happens is the editor comes in and takes the best parts.
Yeah,
and he puts together a kind of story. Yeah,
it's always better to have extra, right?
Yeah, it's always better. You do not want to give it to the editor and he's like, that's it. You know. So they tend to shoot really, especially for the bigger movies with bigger budgets, as much things as possible, as much circumstances and stories you can tell with the different parts of it. And that's usually why it takes so long for those things. But yeah, it really depends on the stunts. So a stunt can be another way of answering that question. What is a stunt, right? Mm-hmm. So a stunt, by definition, is something that that the main actor, actually the definition has been extended. But what it used to mean was an actor is not willing to perform. Mm-hmm. And what happened was stuntmen and stunt performers, they are now considered actors. So that's part of my union now, Screen Actors Guild. That's actually mainly for actors.
Yeah.
But it extends to us now too, because we are considered actors.
Yeah, because you still have to do the physical roles, and also you need that insurance.
Exactly, for insurance purposes, and also so it's extended now. So so a stunt can be anything from tripping down, like you trip over a wire, fell to the floor, boom. You took a punch, so that's the fighting realm. So you have fighting falls, you have motorized vehicles, so things that you're doing on a bike, a motorbike, bicycle, or a car, or a plane, just anything with those things. There are fire burns, where you're set on fire. There are wire...
Ooh, have you done that yet?
Fire burns? Yeah. I've done partial, but not full body.
Like
one little piece. Yeah, it's really... it's very scary, very technical. It's something that I'm going to look more into this year for sure. And it's...
Your wife is looking over here? No.
Yeah, I know so many guys.
No, you're not.
Yeah. There's so many guys who got injured for fire burns. And it's no one's fault. It's just a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, it's
very unpredictable. Yeah. So they tend to... the more experience you have with fire, the better. So, very unpredictable things. So everything else you can literally calculate, like wire gags, for instance. Remember I was talking about you're set on a wire and maybe a wire pulls you back or pulls you by the foot or something like that. There are some riggers that could sit down, write on a piece of paper, exact calculations, angles of how to send someone that's 200 pounds, in a particular direction. Yeah. Yeah, just the physics of it all.
So cool. It gets so technical.
Yeah, and applied physics is what I mean for engineering, to put together the pieces of mechanical things, because there's stuff like ratchet, something called a pneumatic ratchet, which uses air to pull. It's like a little machine thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So so you need a good background in those things to do that. So so those are small examples, but there's pretty much anything that looks dangerous, we need to make it look safe and able to do it over and over again. So have you ever done extra work or anything, or like like background actor. That's
No,
what they refer to.
no, I never did that.
Yeah, it's like well, if you've ever been on set, you'll notice that the same scene is recorded, especially again on bigger budget films, 100 times. So like,
oh yeah, I heard about that.
yeah. So it's like all day, 16 hours, the same exact motion, sometimes 100 times.
Oh,
It's really boring, but but the same thing's expected for stunt performers. So if I hit the ground real hard, oof, feel like I'm wrecked, totally wrecked.
harder.
Yeah, it's expected that I can take that hit harder or reasonably harder at least, depending on your coordinator, bosses, and stuff like that. And more importantly, I can do that same thing 100 times. So that's where the difficulty comes in. Yeah.
Have you ever had any serious injuries from working?
Luckily, no.
Oh, good. Wow.
Yeah. Every injury that I've had has been on the way here, I guess. Like just when I was a lot younger, like and doing parkour free running, I think I've injured every part of my body.
Ooh.
So that makes you smarter, though. You know. And a lot of people think that stunt performers and stuntmen are fearless things. You know, there's we're just used to fear. It's another dimension that we've kind of understand a lot better than the average person. You know. So we use that fear and we get smarter. So we're like, okay, I'm not liking this. So fear turns into kind of a logical thing. We're like, okay, this makes me afraid. Why does this make me afraid? And then you can break down. It's like, okay, maybe this is unsafe, and maybe we can make this a little bit safer. So you become smarter because you get to make sure you make it to the next job.
It's like, okay, I don't have to do that flip like that again. And...
Yeah. And usually, if there's something you're not comfortable with, you could talk it out and figure out something.
What about vehicle and firearms training?
Yes. Yep. I've done those. Yep. And yeah. So yeah. So sorry, I just got a text.
Yeah, it's okay.
So yeah, firearm and vehicle training. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of my focuses this year, to do a lot more vehicle. But yeah, I've done those as well. Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
such a cool gig.
Yeah.
What you have a favorite stunt or a favorite piece of work you've done so far?
Let's see, a favorite stunt kind of thing, right? So
it has to be a favorite stunt. Something like you're very proud of, like, man, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. So there is one thing, but it hasn't come out yet, so I can't talk about it.
All right,
yeah. But one of the more fonder thing, I really did like the work we did on Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. And there's actually, Black Lightning.
Oh, you did Black Lightning too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
it hasn't aired yet, so I can't tell you the details. But there's a fight scene that I do in it, and that was pretty fun. It was really epic. They were trying to piece together this thing because it's like just a big bang. They wanted to go out with a big bang, so it's upcoming. So that was definitely one of my favorites. And again, in Black Lightning, there was a gag that I did. Where I was pulled into a trophy case. It never aired, but it was used in promos and stuff like that. And that was really fun because it was really, it had everyone's heart like, okay, we're not sure what's going to happen. It should work, but we
sure.
Yeah, we practiced it a lot, and we used mats and all these other stuff. Well, yeah. No, because that's what it turns. It's like you're with a lot of professionals, experienced professionals. They've seen everything. They've rammed a car 100 feet in the air and come crashing back down with precision. So they're pretty confident. I'm confident in my bosses. I'm like, they know what they're doing. I'm confident in myself, So I'm like, yeah, that looks like that should work. So what happened was the same wire thing where you're pulled. Mm-hmm. I was pulled into a trophy case, and the case just went smash, like glass flying everywhere. I went through the trophy case, and it was just I was bleeding a little bit because. Mm-hmm. It was sugar glass, but sugar glass also cuts. Yeah, but it's just not severe as like regular glass. So that was one of my favorites for sure too. So those are just a few things I did, but I mainly focus on fights and major faults is what I say. Yeah, and I'm moving more and more into vehicle work, so stunts on bikes and stuff like that. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
What's the main goal in the end for this? Like,
At the end of this,
yes.
it's a good question. So, I think I enjoy performing.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, a lot of people want to go into coordinating, and I think I don't want to go into, because now that I know a lot more what that means, coordinating. I think I would be more comfortable being a fight choreographer. So I put together like martial art fights and because that's my background, martial art fights and like just the movement of it all. So I think I would like to end up there, but just a top tier. Right now, I try to take it one step at a time. So right now, my next, I try not to think too much about the future because anything could happen. So I will try to be top tier stunt performer, like one of those really high regarded guys that's just working all the time. And then eventually but at the end of it all, I probably will become a producer of films, right? So yeah, and as a producer, you start making your own visions and try to put together your own teams to make stuff happen. So that's what I would like, and make my way to that. Yeah.
Do you have a dream project
that I would like to make?
Yes.
I used to have a bunch. I used to have scripts.
Ooh.
So when I was younger. Like I would write out, I would have other people write the script, and I would write, and I would, just constantly think about these things. But right now, no. I just try to focus on the performance part. Yeah. But I know I could do it. I went to film school for a little bit too, so I kind of got some directing background, and I did all kinds of stuff. So and I know a lot of people, and so what I learned was that your movie is only as good as the team, and so that's so you once you know a lot of people, like I said, it's a democracy. Once you know a lot of people and who can do the job in different areas, because it's big teams, man. Like Avengers, for instance, hired 10,000, 15,000 guys, not just stunt performers, but actors and behind the scenes, and cinematographers and all these other guys. Wow. Yeah, it's big teams sometimes for really big movies. Yeah.
How's it working for Marvel?
In which sense? What do you mean?
Actually, let me clarify that. Well, first, how did you get selected to go work for Marvel, and how's the environment working there? Because it's like really interesting from like a fan. No, you see the finished project, or the finished product, and it's really gorgeous. Like, wow, this is a great movie. The stunts are good. Everything's great about it. But what is it like behind the scenes?
Yeah. So, well, I guess I'll start because they are related. I guess I could get started like how I got chosen for Black Panther, and then you'll see where Marvel's loyalties are. So, my first introduction into Marvel, like I always joke around and I say, "Oh yeah, I'm a child of Marvel," because they did, they did a lot for, especially the learning and exposure. And so what happened was, first off, I was determined to be part of Black Panther. Like when I moved to Atlanta, that's one of the reasons why I moved to Atlanta, because I knew they would be filming Black Panther.
Like, no, I want to be part of this.
Yes, I want to be a part of this. I have to be a part of this because I knew it was history. It was history in the making. First black superhero. Yeah.
Oh, people forget about Blade.
Blade, yeah.
And he was on the other day. I was watching it last night. Like, man, it's still a good movie.
But what you don't know is that Black Panther was, I think, one of Marvel's first, even before Blade.
Well, no, he was the first. Like they forgot that they made a film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Blade came first before Black Panther.
Exactly. And Blade actually laid the work.
Yeah.
To say superhero films can work.
Yeah, because I was watching The Fighting. I'm like, man, it's still good.
It's still good. Wesley Snipes has got it, man. They're trying to make a remake now. Yeah, so I wanted to be a part of this, and so I went every route possible. I think every route you could think of. Like everyone that I did know, I was like, hey, if you're working on this, can you please forward my information, please? So, like I did auditions for like some smaller things. And at the end of the day, I still don't know how I was chosen for that. I really don't. It's just one of those. That's what I said. It's reputation, right? So one of those things that I did eventually got to the coordinator, and what really helped me as well was that Ryan Coogler, the director, he wanted to hire as many authentic West Africans as possible, right? And so that narrowed the field down a lot for me as well. And so, and Marvel, working for Marvel, you ask how it is working for them. So there's, the business side, and then there's, production side of things. The business side of Marvel, from what I understand, is that they give a lot of freedom to the production, and create. That's something that's kind of unheard of in Hollywood, and
Really?
for whatever reason, film producers, the big guys who finance it, they really have their hand in the work very heavily. Usually, they want to know every decision. They want to, just every little step along the way. They just, usually it ruins the film. To be honest with you, it takes away some creativity from the film. But they gave what Marvel does, and the reason why they're succeeding so well, especially with the comic book fans, is they let the reins go. They're like, they tell their directors, "Hey, what type of world do you want to build? I want to build this type of world." It's like, "Okay, we agree with that." Usually, they're like, "Yeah, okay, we can see that. How much money do you need?" And then usually they kind of do they have an ultimate budget, and then they have an ultimate budget where like a complete budget. So let's say $200 million, right?
So the whole
for the whole show. Yeah.
Oh, for the whole, okay.
But what they'll be like, okay. In secret, they'll be like, okay, we have $200 million for the show, but we're going to give this director about $100 million. And let's see, because they're predicting trouble on problems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of unique as well. Usually film studios also don't do that. When you have a budget, they give the full budget, and usually the director runs wild and whatever. But they're like, no, let's see what you can do for $100 million, and then let's see how we can adjust it from there. And because of that, it's a very unique thing that only Marvel can do, because they have such a strong brand right now.
Yeah.
But time is also a factor, right? But so that's what they kind of did. And so they let the creativity run wild with Ryan Coogler. They're like, he's really good with budgets. So he, from the ground up, he started flying over to different countries in Africa. And he was starting to look at different cultures in Africa, and he was trying to figure out ways to piece together these different cultures into one coherent type of country.
Yeah, one thing I didn't notice was with the costumes.
Yeah.
Like, I remember something about like they purposely made it really colorful.
Yeah.
Like and you look at the costumes, it's really beautiful too.
Yeah.
Like the purples and the oranges.
Yeah. I forgot. Senna's actually West African. Do you remember what culture does that? It has the robes and whatever, the colorful robes for their...
There are a lot of people do it. Dad's people do it. But I didn't have any kente cloth, but I remember they had. Like, I think it's just...
Well, kente cloth is a good example of that too. African countries tend to be colorful in their wear, their wardrobe and whatever, yeah. And there's something called kente cloth, which is you can find in Nigeria and West Africa. And so they wanted to take those elements, those bright colors, because that's just part of the African culture. And they were like, okay, let's make this movie wildly bright. Brightly colored.
Kente cloth is Ghanaian.
Oh, sorry, Ghanaian.
Those are our people's stuff.
Oh, okay.
You don't be giving that
Not Nigerian, Ghanaian. No offense to...
No offense to Nigeria.
Ghana, Togo, and Benin.
Yeah, Ghana, Togo, and Benin. Those, but I mean, throughout, it doesn't matter what part of Africa you're in, usually the bright colors are part of the culture. Yeah. So it's things like that. So there are little things. Also, there are parts of the movie where you'll hear what's it called, click talk.
Oh,
That's definitely not what it's called, but
yeah,
it's not what I call it. That's not what I call it. Don't call it that.
It's not called that, but it's like
Tosa, I think is one of the languages from Southern Africa.
That's probably not even what I'm talking about. But
they have the clicks in.
Yeah, but there's actual instruments. There's like instruments.
Oh, is it like a two sticks?
Yeah, it's
the two like the two round wooden sticks. I think Puerto Ricans got the same thing.
Yeah, it's something like that, but they use that for their theatrical stuff, dramatic stuff.
Oh.
They'll make these kluk sounds,
okay, then,
depending on what's happening in a scene. Anyway.
Oh, wait a minute.
So, the instrument.
Yes. It's what I'm referring to as part of their theater.
Yeah.
When they do shows, they go kluk kluk, and it will set the mood for the movie.
Oh, cool.
So it's a little cool things like that. If you watch Black Panther again, you'll hear in the background, in the music or in the scene, you'll hear kluk kluk, these sounds.
Yeah,
kluk,
okay, I remember
kluk, 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 kluk. And then when things speed up, then it speeds up.
The talking drum.
There you go.
So
That's
you
what it's
have
called.
A drum with strings on it, and the
It's called the talking drums.
Actually, come over here.
Yeah. So my wife, for all the listeners, my wife is actually she grew up in West Africa. You wouldn't tell by looking at her, but she grew up in West Africa, so she can What could you explain what the talking drums are?
Yeah, so
move a little closer to the mic.
So it's called a talking drum, and it is.
No, she's good from right there.
It's hard to describe it, but it's like a regular wooden drum with a leather top. So they usually use like cow or goat hide, and then they'll they'll wet it and then they'll put it on the drum and they'll dry it in the sun so it really tights on the drum. And then there's strings connecting the two ends. So when they hold it on their arms to play, so they're beating it, holding it on their arms, and they'll squeeze it to change the sound. So go doo doo doo. So it literally sounds like it's talking. So they have the beating sound, and on top of that they have the like undulations with the squeezing of the arm to like pull the strings.
Yeah.
And you could hear it in the waterfall scene when they're doing the tribute. They have that like drum with like the I can't even make the sound.
Yeah.
It's like it has like
It's really cool, and I'm when I saw there's little things like that, subtle things like that. That's actually in that movie that like it pays homage to a lot of African countries and like the different parts of African culture. So actually, I know people from mainland Africa. They were just ecstatic. They were like on the moon when they heard these things and saw these things on screen. And so for regular, North Americans, you're watching. It's like, oh, that's kind of different. It's colorful, yeah. But for them, it was like.
The culture was being represented.
Yeah, never seen before on this side of the world. Never. Most parts of the world. Never really seen it on the big screen. So that sets the tone for Marvel right there. They at least the MCU. Yeah,
because every movie, maybe not the first few movies, but not the first phase, but after that they're starting like, all right, directors, go do what you want. Go do what you need to do.
Exactly. I think they realize, and then they're very methodical with which directors they get and the team that they put together. They know that these teams can work very well with small amounts of money, and if they work well with small amounts of money, slowly introduce bigger budgets throughout the production. Keep that same mindset, and they do some wonderful creative things because of that. And so in the MCU, it's an exciting time if you're a director or you're working for the MCU in that creative capacity. And I'm talking about that because that's the first part of when you ask how is it working for Marvel, it's like that. It's like try to bring your creativity out. Even in the stunt department, they're like, well, what can we do here? And they do listen, and so that's very nice, and. That makes them unique, I think, from other studios. So, but beyond that, I think they did a pretty good job trying to keep us comfortable. And I do say MCU because Marvel TV is whole nother ball game completely. So
yeah, that's kind of a weird how that's set up because it's two different organizations, correct?
Yeah.
But they're still connected in a way, but they're different also.
Well, yeah, the only thing it's very different. And then Marvel TV has been like really part of Netflix, kind of.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, sad. Like what? Besides Iron Fist, why the other ones? The other ones were really, really good. I want to see what happened with Luke Cage.
Yeah, not a big fan of Defenders either, but
I don't know. I liked it.
Couldn't finish it, but it's Marvel TV because it has more hands in the pot. So Netflix were actually part producer as well. So they had to sign off on things, and Marvel TV had their own producer. It wasn't Kevin Feige. He was not part of that side of things. So Marvel TV is I will say it's not as methodical. Yeah. They have tighter restrictions, tighter budgets. Things have to move really quickly.
See, because I was thinking the opposite because the TV shows, the ones on Netflix, they're more graphic and violent, and a little more grounded in some senses too. Yeah,
they are. Well, it's kind of like the comics too. So you have street level.
Mm-hmm. The street level fighters.
Yeah, street level.
Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil, whatever.
Daredevil.
So they want to resemble that. You can't have Daredevil can't be shooting fireballs and beams of light.
He can't be jumping over 2 buildings at once.
Right. It has to be grounded in reality somehow. So that's the method. That's what they try to and it also is really good for budgets. Again, when you try to keep it that grounded. So it doesn't have all the fantastical powers that you'll find in the MCU or even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which at one point had ridiculous ratings. Like it's really high in the ratings, and just it didn't quite work out for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but yeah,
it is still going. But I think why it was so high when it first came out because it was it was really connected to the movies.
Yeah, it was right after Avengers too.
Yeah, especially after Captain America Winter Soldier, because that first season, the last couple episodes was directly connected to the movie.
Right, exactly. And then Coulson, everyone wanted to know how Coulson came back. That's the Agent Coulson, the guy who died in Avengers, yeah.
And he's going to be back in Captain Marvel.
He will. I'm excited.
One thing I did love about that show, I started watching again, and they took him off for the only half of the season was Ghost Rider. Mm-hmm. I was so excited about seeing him. Like, yes, Ghost Rider.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't watch that season, but I heard it was good. Yeah, but that's how it is. I've never worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I don't know how those guys. Because that's even Marvel adjacent. That's like another studio as well. Yeah, it's not even Netflix either. Yeah, but we'll see. My personal belief. This is completely off record. No one's told me anything or whatever. But I do feel like those shows on Netflix will find their way on. Well, they will come back. They will be back.
They're too good.
Yeah. They had good ideas, and they have a strong following, I think. And so I think Marvel will try to incorporate them into their Disney universe, like the Disney Plus, that streaming service that's coming.
Yeah,
out.
that's come. Do you know when it's coming out?
I don't know when it's coming out, but they already have plans for like a Loki show and all these other things.
Well,
so
I know that's going to be difficult with the Netflix shows. Not so much getting the permission, but the
like the rights or whatever.
No, it's not the rights. It's the actual content itself, because Disney's more family friendly, and those shows are more just for adults, basically.
Well, just remember now, Bob Iger, he's like the president of Disney. He has already confirmed that Disney will allow R-rated things.
Okay, so they'll probably just lock it, like the age restriction.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. They can. Hulu is also, after this merger, Disney is merging with Fox.
Yeah.
After that merger, Hulu also becomes kind of part of Disney's property. They have the majority sharehold in Hulu. So I would say if it's kind of gritty and it's kind of hard hitting, it's going to find its way on Hulu.
That's the way you solve it.
Yeah, that's how you solve the problem. So I'm pretty convinced that it's going to come back. They were maybe not in the same form that we remember them. You never know. They might start over.
No, I don't know. I think it's to keep with the same people. Yeah,
we've grown and loved them. I love everyone that they casted, with the exception of Iron Fist, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
I like first. I thought the second season was redemptive in a way. It's like, okay, it did get better.
Yeah, they put a lot of work into trying to make it. Yeah,
and I was kind of excited with the last scene when he dual wielded the two guns, because he was going to take. That was a callback to one of the other Iron Fist.
Yeah,
but I was so excited about that. That looks so cool.
Yeah,
we'll never see it.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna go to the question part of the interview.
Sure.
For everyone that's a first-time listener and returning listeners, I thank you guys. These questions I ask to everyone that's on the show. I ask them randomly because there's 29 questions on here, but I don't ask all of them. I only ask 5 or 6 of them. The reason why I ask these questions is because I have different types of people on here, and everyone on here lived a different life, interesting life. And also, too, you may not agree, or you may agree with the way they live their life or their views. These questions are supposed to show more deeper part to a person. Look, these are interpersonal questions. So my whole goals for this is that no matter what you think about a person, about their lifestyle or their type of job they do, you can still relate to a person on a certain level. And plus, just a little more fun questions to get to know my guests more too. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'll ask the first one. Given the choice of anyone in the world from any time period, who would you want as a dinner guest and why?
That's a hard question.
Oh yeah. Whoa. Okay. If I let me just unpack that for a second. If I can choose anyone in history,
anyone, from any time period, it could be now, it could be from history,
and I would like to have dinner with them.
Yeah.
I think she's laughing because I think she.
That's a hard question.
Yeah, it's a really hard question. I'll tell you right off the bat. Probably a dinner with Elon Musk right now. Yeah. I find the guy very, very fascinating. And I don't know if I know you move around. Yeah. But I think Elon Musk is a very fascinating character, and I'd like to sit down, pick his brain about a few things, see where he's coming from with a few things.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at the guy, he's the modern day. He'd probably be our millennium, not only our generations, but our millennials.
Yeah.
Millennia. Einstein, not Einstein, but maybe Da Vinci.
Yeah, or kind of like a Newton character. Someone's just inventing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's just like, it was like, okay, you got, normal inventors, then you have someone that takes a leap forward. So that'll be kind of like Newton or Da Vinci.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I see him. I have this conversation with my wife too. Very philosophical talk, because we talk about, planetary exploration and everything. She's totally against it. She's an environmentalist. Yeah. But I understand where she's coming from. I have an argument for that. But her argument, that's a whole nother show on its own. But she's an environmentalist. She's an oceanographer.
Oh, wow.
Research. She's going deeper into research, as a research scientist. And so the way that she sees this is not a very optimistic view of like how humans interact with their environments. So if you become interplanetary, you're just consuming. So that's clearly a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Totally agree with her on that. But I'm very much more optimistic. I see us as more of life bringing. Yeah. I think when given the opportunity, we'll transform those resources. Once we survive long enough, we'll start transforming resources into life. Yeah. To bigger things. Yeah.
Well, I think more. I think it's in our nature. We're explorers.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's in human nature to explore.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next step in our evolution. It's like, okay, there's still a lot of places on the planet. There's still a lot of stuff here on Earth that we still don't understand and we still need to work on.
Yeah.
But also too, the first time in the history of the entire planet, as a species has the ability to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it needs to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's the only way we're going to survive, honestly. So,
and also on the environmental part, if you do asteroid mining, zero pollution on Earth.
Yeah, no more pollution on Earth. That'll help Earth. It's true.
Asteroid mining.
Yeah, this.
But the thing is too, this the book I have by my bedside. I still haven't read it yet. Written by Steven Pinker. It's called Better Angels, or Better Angels of Our Souls. I believe that's the full title.
Mm-hmm.
But he made a good point. He said, like, we as a civilized, the entire world, things did get better.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's still violence, there's still bad things going on in the world, but it has dropped significantly. So I'm hopeful about that part. Like, yeah, we still got to worry about the environment. We still got issues to solve. But I think in the future, we are going to get better with it. Exactly. I think we are going to get to that point. It's like, okay, the things we're doing right now is going to seem medieval.
Yeah.
I think so. We're going to have, like, 100 years from now, we're going to have a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the key is just surviving long enough. That's what I always say.
All right. What would constitute a perfect day for you?
No. my wife just said being with her, and I think it's a truthful podcast, so I can't.
I can't be on.
Yeah, I'm a pretty low-key guy. So, you would, exploration is kind of my thing. So, yeah, my perfect day would have to be something with just me and a few people, and we're exploring something new. So, I could just see myself really kind of loving, maybe not the Himalayas, but a much more comfortable kind of hike or something. Something through some mountains or something with a little bit of climbing, a little bit of.
I got a place for you to. Have you ever been to Asheville, North Carolina?
No, not yet. No.
It's only a 4-hour drive from here.
Yeah.
Beautiful, very beautiful place. Ever heard of the movie Cold Mountain?
I've heard of it, never watched it. Yeah.
Okay, that's where the Black Mountains, and if I get this wrong, I'm sorry guys, but the Black Mountains is where Asheville's at.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous. It's pretty. It's nice to go hiking on. The downtown area is a really nice area where there's things happening, so it's not a boring place. So after you do your hiking, go back to the hotel, clean up, and go out on a night. On the town, man. It's really pretty out there.
Nice. I
really want to move out there one day.
Well,
I'll be into that. Like, yeah, I'll live in the mountains now.
I'm gonna have to check this out. All right. Is it Nashville?
It's called Asheville. So Ashville, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay.
It's not that far, really. It's just 4 hours. Same journey to Atlanta.
Okay.
Same time frame.
All right. I'm gonna check it out for sure. Like. Yeah. So things like that. Just that type of exploration. Like I said, the key thing is with small group that I like, and I think at the end of the day, there's a little party or something, but a little gathering or whatever, a lot of dancing, a lot of drinking, and all that other stuff. And I think that pretty much that would be just closest perfect day for me, just to relax, and then another side of me wants to be something like something technology based or something. I like technology a lot, tech and stuff like that. So, maybe another perfect day might just be going through some like research development lab, seeing what's on the horizon.
Ooh,
yeah.
What's it, DARPA?
Something like DARPA would definitely interest.
That'd be really cool. Like,
yeah.
What crazy shit are you guys doing?
Yeah. I'm actually winning myself over. That sounds like almost even better than the exploration. Yeah, but something like true DARPA, like, can you imagine like just like invisible cloaks and all these other like nanobots and.
Well, I remember a couple years ago that somebody did make an invisible cloak.
I heard about it.
But it was the size of a flea. Like it was able to cover a flea. That's it. Oh. But it's like, hey, it works.
It works. $5 billion too.
Yeah, that probably was. Yeah, like I think it was somewhere in Europe. But like, yeah, it works. We can make the flea invisible. Like, yeah, good job.
It's like every step.
The dog's not going to see him coming.
Exactly. It's like, ow, I just got bit. Who bit me? Yeah, okay.
Let's see. If you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be?
Also interesting question.
All these are interesting.
Yeah.
Well, like I ask these questions because they are psychological, because they're supposed to show a different side to a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, I stopped showing these questions before the interview because I want to be spontaneous. I don't want somebody thinking about it beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. No, I like it. If I could change something on the way that I grew up, or how it was taught, or
look at the question.
Yeah.
About the way you were raised.
Yeah. So I do think, and although I appreciate it and I understand where they're coming from, my family is a little closed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like for a real life scenario, like I first off, I have 5 other siblings. Mm-hmm. I'm the youngest, and it wasn't until I came into the picture that they would have people over to the house, and like it was very closed off. Like I had to sneak friends in, and we would play games and whatever when I was really young. And then when my dad came home, he'd just be like, "Oh no, they gotta go." So I think one thing I would like to change is if I could change that aspect of it, maybe a little bit more open. I could have more people over, or even just push me into new experiences. Because, like, for instance, gymnastics and martial arts, I paid for that myself. Even like my father was not. Yeah, he's
Go do yourself.
Yeah, he's a very hard kind of guy, and he didn't see the value in it, in doing martial arts and like gymnastics and whatever. I should be out. I don't know, do whatever real men do, I guess. I don't know. So I would save up all my lunch money, and we had an allowance back then where we get a certain amount of money, and I would put all that aside, and I dumped it all into my martial art training. So I can't help but think, if they were more open to those ideas and more open in general to just more possibilities and more friends and whatever, like knowing the person that I am, like how much further would I have been, And that's probably one aspect. But I have a pretty supportive, loving family. It's just a different type of
it's a little, like
support.
you said, it's a little bit more closed.
Yeah, it's a lot more closed, and the way that they even express, emotions and stuff is just is really different. And I had a hard time, especially moving especially the United States, coming to a new country. Certain things I couldn't even wrap my head around. With interactions and the way that people process information, it's really strange. Like I can't even. But
it's a culture shock.
Yeah, not even culture, because it was just my family. Like I can't even say culture. It's just so for instance, I'll give you a small example and then we can move on. Yeah. But in the stunt world and in acting in the film industry, like I said, it's a democracy. It's very people to people, who you know, right? And so sometimes that outweighs talent or what you've done. And so because of this, we go into parties and stuff like that. That's part of the business. You go to parties, you schmooze, you rub shoulders. Yeah,
promote yourself.
Yeah, well, promoting I'm perfect at promoting. That's probably how I got this far. I know how to promote myself, but there's like little subtle things, people to people thing, when you're rubbing elbows with certain people. I still have a hard time because I'm so low key and I'm kind of closed because of the way that I grew up. And we're very strict people, so I'm just finding a way to do those things and not have it affect me in an adverse way, because I just don't like to. I party, but I want to party and then go. But it's like a constant party in the film industry. You have to really bring it. But so that's probably one little minor thing I would change. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a fun one. If you wake up tomorrow and gain any power or ability, what would it be and why?
Ooh.
Actually, the first time I asked that question was here in Savannah, because I went to interview an old cop buddy of mine. And he's a big comic book nerd.
Yeah.
And his first, he's like,
oh, don't tell me, because I don't want to. I don't want to skew my.
Yeah,
my
I'll tell
answer.
you after you say it.
Yeah. For one first part of me is time travel, because it just feels like
that would be cool.
Yeah, it just seems like an infinite amount of possibilities when you have time travel. But and then you could just always hit the reset button. Like you could do anything. You're like, oh, I don't like that, and hit the reset button. I don't know. But I would say time travel, or maybe some form of telepathy, something like not just telepathy, but like knowing future events, future and past events, so like a precog or
precognition.
Yeah, I find those things really, really interesting. To know what happens next and to be able to adjust in a certain way. It doesn't have to be, I'll take a minute. I don't need to know years ahead in the future.
1 minute.
But I feel like that comes with its own challenges too. But yeah, the further outward precognition, I think that would be something that I would find really interesting. And like, but time travel is definitely up there. It's between those two. Do I have to choose one?
No, you can choose both.
Okay, yeah, I'll pick those two.
This is all hypothetical, so if you want both, you can have both. And they're related to each other, so it's not like
yeah.
So I'm like, I want flying and time travel. Like, no, you got to choose one. You only get one. You don't get to be greedy. Actually, my friend, he said that anything that he said will come true. That will be his superpower. I'm like, man, that's a
That's interesting.
That's pretty powerful.
That's pretty powerful. Very ominous. Like
Yeah.
it's very. That is a god level.
He's like, I thought about this for years. That would be my power.
Oh my goodness. He wants to be Franklin Richards. I read comics too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's overpowerful.
Yeah.
What if anything's too serious to be joked about?
Is there anything too serious to that's an interesting question too. Again, another interesting question. So my philosophy is I think, and I'm sure you've heard this before, I think we've become too sensitive as a society, right? Mm-hmm. I think I am of two minds on this. I feel like everyone should be respectful, but at the same time, I do believe that, whatever you're thinking, you should be able to say it without major repercussions for it, right? No matter how crazy or, it might seem, or disgusting or offensive it might seem. So with that ideology, it's really hard to pinpoint something that you should never say. Mm-hmm. Something you should never ever say. Never say or joke about.
No. Well, it's just a question like if you believe if there's anything or not. If you don't, then...
I have to say not really. Mm-hmm. I think everything's on the table. I can't really think of anything that you can't joke about, and it comes back to what I was saying. Like, you should be able to joke about everything. Mm-hmm. So I think, like I said, but I am of two minds. I think that the person telling the joke or saying these things they should be respectful.
Yeah.
When they say these things, they have to be educated enough to say these things. Like, especially if it's offensive, because, it's not in the old days. Communication was pulled to smaller groups. Mm-hmm. You say something that stays in a small group. So that kind of limits what's constituted as offensive. But these things do hurt and they do scar. And especially, you never know what your brother has gone through or someone else has gone through. So you should be respectful of that. And at the same time, I think as a society, we should not restrict these things of being said, because ultimately, even if it leads to a fight, let's say it's offensive and it leads to a fight, mm-hmm. that's part of the whole evolution of moving past something, or maybe the person saying it will learn something from this offense, and the person who's being offended might also learn something. So I am one of that, like, truths. I want to see more truths in the world. Mm-hmm. And but at the same time, be respectful. So, yeah,
I think all of it is about intent. It's like,
it's
the difference between if you make a off-color joke, and you're doing it because you're joking around, versus you said something and you mean it.
Yeah, that's like a big difference, man. Yeah.
Then you come back like, no, I'm sorry, I was joking. Like, no, we could tell you meant that.
You meant that, exactly. And so,
but even then, like, I think people should be forgiven. Like, people make mistakes and people grow.
And then even with that, like, maybe the thing that what I've learned meeting so many people is that sensitivities are different. Mm-hmm. So, I might say one joke to a particular group. It might be offensive, like, hey, that's not funny, but they can laugh about it. Yeah. But I can say the exact same thing to another person mm-hmm. in that same subgroup, and it will hit them way harder, to the point that it was hurt. You have truly hit them somewhere. Mm-hmm. So you need to know. I think to summarize this, especially as a public figure, because that's another thing. Let's say your voice carries over to millions of people.
Yeah,
that's a very wide range, right?
Yeah, your words do matter.
Your words do matter. Yeah, and so I think you should make your point, but find it somewhere in the middle that's respectful, mm-hmm. and you can soften the blow a little bit. Sometimes, like I said, intent isn't even you might say something with all the good intent in the world, but it came out harsh, and it's interpreted differently by certain people in the subgroup. So you really have to stop. I respect the person that can figure out a way to convey an uncomfortable thought, mm-hmm. in the most respectful way possible. That's the person's that I think make it.
That's a really tough line to do, and people
Yeah.
forget that. And my big thing is like people make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're not actively, I really believe your actions. Like as long as you're not hurting someone or you're going out there like, join the KKK or stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, even then, for example, I did a interview a couple of months ago with a former KKK member,
Mm-hmm.
and he's reformed and he made mistakes.
Yeah.
He mentioned it's like, I was blinded by hate. I made some mistakes, and I'm trying to make my life better. And I just think like at some point, forgiveness, like you gotta be aware. Be aware of what he did, but also too like give him a chance to actually change.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then you also have to ask the question: if he was allowed, let's say he had, usually this hate, especially now in today's world, because the past world, let's say centuries ago, was way different, and it comes down to those smaller groups that I was talking about that would communicate within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't care about other subgroups. But we are such an integrated world right now that maybe I can't help but think that maybe if that guy was able to express himself, well, he didn't have to hold anything back. Let's say he hates, let's say he doesn't like colored people, right? If he was able to say, well, I don't, to tell another colored person, as much colored people as possible, I don't like you because you do this and this and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the colored person is not fully offended and it's like, oh, wow, that really hurt. And then he's like, well, good. And then he's like, well, have you tried living the way that I lived? Mm-hmm. Maybe that opens up a dialogue of communication between the two parties. And it gets squashed a lot quicker.
Yeah, I remember my psychology professor in college. He said that the only really way to stop hate is, I forget the exact word of it, but it's really just connecting with another person.
Yeah.
He said a lot of like there's I forgot the guy's name. There's a black man who his whole goal is to convert convert KKK members.
Oh yeah, I know that guy. Yeah.
And all of it's just based on like, hey, I'm a black guy. You like me, right? Like, I like you. So there's other black people you like too.
Exactly.
You're gonna like them too.
And then I see the flip side of that too. There's some people, no matter what you do,
there's gonna be.
But that's important. You open up the dialogue. At some point, those people the people with all this hate in their heart. But like you say, it starts with communication and finding the connection. And you can't have a connection if there's no dialogue. And in order to have dialogue, you sometimes have to say uncomfortable things.
Yeah. All truth is going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Especially the harsher the truth is going to be very painful at times, but it's there for a reason.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, we'll go to this one. When was the first time you fell in love, and how did it happen? Uh-oh. She's watching.
Oh, man. So, like, and then there's two types of love, too. So...
Well, you could say both types. The person I interviewed earlier today, she said her first time she fell in love was with her parents. Like, when she actually felt love for the first time. Some people say that, and some people can answer like, the first time I fell in love was in high school. Or it's up to you.
I'm gonna take a more interesting route because, I can go that route with the family and everything. I've grown up in a truly loving home. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think there's any point I was like, I don't feel loved, and I think that's really important too. That carries over to, I'm sure, with my kids. Like, the more loving environment that produces something really good. Because I've seen the opposite. I've seen where, in a broken home where there isn't a lot of love, it's like, oh, there's a lot of hate being passed around. Well, it never ends up well. So family is a universal love for sure. But relationship, when I think of love, like relationship-wise, falling in love. And there's, like I was saying, there's two types of love. So there was like, and Senna knows this, that's my wife. I think the long-lasting kind of love that we see in movies, or whatever, has to be with my current wife right now.
Mm-hmm. Aww.
Yeah.
She's smiling. Like, that's the right answer. That's the right answer.
That's right. That's right, folks. I'm safe tonight. And then there was another, but it was I don't even know what to call it. It's a flash in the pan type love, like
What's that called? That's more lustful or more.
It's not lust. It's somewhere in between. It's somewhere in between that everlasting kind of love phase and that lust phase, and it's just like this. Like well, and by the way, I have this with my wife too. It's just, but this one it is different. It's like and it's more like it's not. The more time that I had to digest it, I was like, that's not really. It's not the type of love that lasts, you know. It's kind of like a kind of TV. It's more like romancing, I guess. Kind of romancing. You in the an endless romance. Like you've met someone you kind of you lust for.
Yeah.
They lust back. It's kind of a hot like grease, like a pan full of grease. You
It's
just
more
throw
passionate.
fish.
It's
It's a really passionate, hard hitting kind of passion, romancing type of deal, and never had that before. But with that particular girl, so I was about 20, I think, 20 or 21, and that was interesting. Didn't last that long, and it couldn't. The more I look back, it couldn't last. Too destructive.
Ooh, yeah.
Because we were too similar. So we were. I was I was less considerate, much more of a jerk, and I liked Avengers, and she was kind of the same way. And so that's a romancing. But right now, my current wife, Santa, I met her 10 years ago, and we got married like 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years. Seven. I was going to say it was 7 years ago we got married, but we were together for 10 years, right? And that was a very slow process. The building of trust and really falling in love at a much slower pace, much more doable pace. Because we, like, kid you not, first time I went to see her, my current wife, well, you know, maybe two more movies that might change.
Sister wives.
You never know.
Hey, honey, meet your new sister wife. Go.
So, if she plays her card right, my current wife,
My current wife.
but it was when I first met her, because it was a long distance relationship at first, and I think that actually added to the relationship, especially where looks like I'm going to end up traveling a lot. And I had a really bad breakup, maybe a year or two before that, with the same girl that I was talking about, and so when I first met her, we were inseparable. Me and my wife were inseparable, right? And for her, it was a very slow burn. For me, I had to slow my roll because I was such a passionate person. I'm like, all right, well, this is, kind of like a conquest thing with women and everything. And I said, oh, well, she's not like that. And then I had to really break down, like, well, do I really like her? Do I want to make this work? And slowly but surely, I said, yeah, I really want to make this work. And like, there's something deeper with something like that. There's you kind of lose these other incentives to be in a relationship. Like some people are in a relationship just for the sex and for like there's something that you get from the other person.
Yeah, it's like quid pro quo. Like quid pro quo means I get something, you get something.
Yeah, like reciprocal, something like And there's something so shallow about that, like And so for us, it was much, much deeper because it was so much slower than that. Yeah, and so now, but the key point I want to make here is from the first day I met her, it was kind of really inseparable. And even for the last 10 years, we've really pretty much been inseparable. You can't separate us. Inseparable, yeah. And we enjoy each other's company, and that's a very rare thing. So, when you talk about real, lasting, some good stuff there, that would be with my wife right now. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
Right answer. Right answer.
I'm safe, y'all. I'm good. Woo! Yeah.
What was the most terrifying moment in your life?
Oh, yeah. Maybe. Yeah, so there was... Yeah, I I'm a pretty calm guy too, and I think that so my whole family, we kind of, this is a side story, and then I'll get to the question. Yeah, well, because this might actually add to the fact that I'm a stunt performer. So my family, I don't know if it's genetics or the way that we were brought up. There is something that kind of kicks in when we're under stress, where we just kind of calm down even more.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's really
lucky.
Yeah,
lucky. I wish I had that.
Yeah, we're not anxious people. My family, it's really quite strange. Like,
well, you're blessed.
Yeah, I mean, but but it was like I was saying too. Like as a stunt performer, I've learned that these things, people view fear in the wrong way. Fear is something that tells you something's wrong, and you can adjust it. So sometimes if you're too laid back or you're not anxious, some things can happen that gets you in trouble. I can't really think of something like that, but it does happen. And I can see it in my siblings and stuff. But yeah, we just have something in our, I don't know what it is, genetics, or if it's just the way that we were brought up. But whenever there's a lot of stress, we mellow out even more. It's really weird. And I think, so for me, in stunt performance, and like when something dangerous is happening, time literally kind of slows down. And I see a bigger picture. I don't get that tunnel vision thing. And part of that is probably because of my martial art training as well, because in ninjutsu we do some really crazy stuff. But part of that's definitely like genetics or culture in our family. But with that said, I was trying to think of a time where it was really... So Nassau is not... In certain parts of Nassau could be pretty dangerous. Yeah, so the one of the times I was definitely terrified was I was at home. And it was on this day I decided not to, because I used to go to college, right? It was this day I decided to skip, just play hooky that day. Like I just didn't want to go to classes that day. And so I decided to stay home. And I heard some noises outside, but I didn't think anything of it. And I thought it was maybe my sister coming back home or something like that, just visiting. So, it's just any minute now, I was just waiting for her to come in. So I just decided to go into the bathroom and just use the bathroom. And I'm just using the bathroom, and the next thing I know, the door slowly opens and this head kind of peeks in, and it's just like looking around or whatever, and the person looks straight up at me, and I look down, and it's like, God. Who the, I was like, who was you? And this guy's like,
cursing what?
Yeah. And then this guy's like, he's like, go, yo, get the gun. He's shouting out, get the gun. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And like, when you hear all sorts of fantastical stories, like, oh, if that was me, I would just like beat this guy up. And I was at the time I was a black belt in what martial art was it? Probably jiu-jitsu. Yeah, Miyomi jiu-jitsu. So I at the time technically I could. I probably would, but I don't know how much people are in this house. And he's saying, get the gun, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. And my adrenaline just shot through the roof. And I just pushed the guy, like I punched him, I think, probably kneed him, pushed the guy down. He said, get the gun. I don't know how much people are in this house. And I just bolted out that house. And I'm like running down the street, and I see like 3 guys in my yard, like just chasing me. And like I'm like just running down the road, a car passes, and I have so much adrenaline in me. This car must have been going at like 10 miles per hour. The window's down. I do a dive rollout into a car that's going about 10 miles per hour. So, and she's like, what the? And she just stops and she's like, get out. I'm like, miss, I don't know these people. They're after me. Can you keep going? She's like, no, get out my car, get out. And I'm like, so I get out. And I like just ran down the street to like another neighbor's house down the road. And I was just shaking, and I was like, oh, what the frig? Whoa, what's going on? And like, and I called the cops and everything, and they get in, and after that, they booked it. And that was terrifying for me because I didn't know what was going on. Because I've seen people got shot before, like in certain parts in the hood and stuff like that. And so like these things are going through my head, like, I'm not getting shot today. And I was just like fight or flight, right? And I booked it. And like it was actually it's a really godsend kind of that I was there, because my dad had a ton of money in the house at the time. Yeah, and I kind of, because I was home, I deterred that they didn't get the money. They didn't steal much. They stole 1 or 2 things. it was a good thing that I was there ultimately. And when I think back, I say maybe they didn't even have a gun. But you never know. They had a knife.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's 3 of them. I probably couldn't fight my way. Couldn't tie all 3 of them up. So so looking back, it was fortunate that I probably was there. But that was terrifying. That's one of the terrifying memories. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh.
I got trust issue, y'all.
Yeah. It's like a violation too. It's like you're in my house.
You're in my house. The last thing I expected.
Violation.
Yep. Yeah. You never know. You never know when it could happen. So be prepared, I guess. Yeah.
Have you ever had a spiritual or profound experience?
Yes. Well, the story that I just told, I consider that a kind of spiritual experience because something there was. So first off, I believe that the universe communicates with us for sure. I believe in astrology too, and I studied when I was younger. True story. I was like a teen. In my teenage years, I would have books and books about astrology, and I would do my own experiments and whatever. Like I'd use my friends as experiments as a control and whatever. And I was like, "Is there something to this thing?" And then at the end of the day, I was like, "Yeah, I think there's something to this." But that's another story. But the story I just told you about the guys coming into the house, it made no sense that I stayed home that day. Usually I'm not home. Usually I was at school or at my classes or I'm doing something else at home. Something just told me, why don't you stay home today? Didn't make sense. I was like, okay, I'll stay home. And after that, I heard some noises outside. Something told me, why don't you go into the bathroom? I was like, you should use the bathroom. I said, all right, let me use the bathroom before whoever this is comes inside. And then I go inside the bathroom, and I'm saying this because it's totally illogical. Every time I think back on this memory, it's like it's just me going with the flow of something telling me to do something. And then you see how that turned out. I deterred a major robbery in my house, and potentially saved someone's life if they came back another day with my mother because she's elderly. If she was home, goodness knows what would have happened to her. They might have hit her or something like that. So I feel like that was the universe telling me to be there at that exact time to stop that from happening. So that's one type of spiritual kind of connection there. And throughout my life, there's like little instances here and there where something tells me to do something. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. And even just being in the stunt community, in the stunt world, that too is kind of just something pushing me in that direction. Something that's not, I have nothing logical to say. Because, there was no, I'm pretty determined, but there's no, I don't know, there's no exterior motivation. I'm not a big, I don't care if I'm rich. I don't really care about the materialistic stuff. So, it wasn't money. I didn't go into stunt world because of money. I just wanted to do something I enjoy. And then someone's like, hey, why don't you try this? And because of that, I've done something that only a few, when you look at the history of,
not a lot of people done.
Yeah, not a lot of people have done it and stick around this long. So So those are just 2 small instances, and I'm not particularly a religious person. Yeah, that's another story. But my dad's a pastor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and So when you talk about positive spiritual, I think those 2 points something I could definitely hold on to. And
definitely deep.
Yeah.
All right, got 2 more questions.
Sure.
What's the biggest sacrifice you made?
Give me a sec here. So the biggest sacrifice that I've ever made, and that, That's a very hard question. That might actually be the hardest question for me because and you have to see where my mind is because, like I said, I'm a pretty second plan type of guy.
Yeah.
So. For me, a sacrifice is something that you didn't see coming, but when you have to make a sacrifice, you didn't really see it coming, and you're like, okay, well, this has to be done, and it's something that you really don't want. Usually, for me, if there's something I don't want, I just switch to Plan B. Yeah. So that's why it's such a hard.
What's a plan B?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm a really big plan B guy, but a big sacrifice. I really can't think of anything.
Okay.
Let's change that question. Hit me with something else.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get.
We still have 2 questions. Yeah.
Well, no, it's okay. We're gonna move on to the last question, which
Sure.
is a 2-part question.
Yeah.
And it's a deep question. I ask this to everyone.
Yes.
And like I said, it's really deep. What is the worst thing you've ever done, and what is the best thing you ever done in your life? It's like
So my wife is partly right. The worst thing I ever did, marry this lady.
the worst thing.
No. So the worst thing I ever did in my life. Well, let's start with the best thing, and then I'll come back to the worst thing. So definitely the best thing that I could think that I ever did in my life was travel. You know what I mean?
I love traveling.
Yeah, it's one of those underappreciated, and like not a lot of people think about it, but I do believe, like, especially in your youth, the more that you travel and the more people that you meet and the more circumstances you find yourself in, that makes you a better, that prepares you for life.
Yeah, there's scientific knowledge about that. Like, the more you travel, it's better for your brain. It's better how you view. It actually affects how you view time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you go into that a little bit. Like, what do you mean? Like, in time?
What? I remember my friend telling me about it because we both love psychology.
Yeah.
He said, I think time slows down in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, if you look back at life, it seems a little bit longer, more fulfilling that you traveled.
Yeah.
Versus someone who just still in the same town the whole life.
Yeah. I definitely could see that for sure. Time just passes you by. Like I mean, just to hop around that for a little bit, the mind gets rid of wasteful information. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it can't process all this information. So when you think about it, if you use the same routine, your mind is not like... your mind doesn't have a need to hold on to memories and hold on to the moment. Because it's like, well, I know what's going to happen next. So time probably passes you by a lot quicker when you fall into the same routine. And so, if you travel, that's a new experience every time. So you have new memories and new experiences for your brain to constantly stay active. And yeah, I could definitely see how it just like slows time down and makes every moment just feel more impactful. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. When I started, the more I traveled, I mean, as a kid, I think the first time I traveled ever by myself, I was 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. I met up with a class even. And my family thought I was crazy. It's like, this 6-year-old kid. Like, go out on the street and look at the average 6-year-old. Like today, they are not cooking for themselves. They are not. They're not traveling on commercial airlines by themselves, right? But I was like, I got to do this. I got to go. And I was a pretty stubborn kid. So I was like, I got to go. I got to get out of here. Yeah, stubborn. I'm a lot less stubborn now, but I'm still stubborn a little bit. But yeah, from 6 years old, and I think at 10 years old, once a year, I would try to get out of my country and then like see the world and see what other people are up to. And look where that took me. It took me to 3 countries, countless of long friends that I could call on, and I would say, I'll tell everyone, please go see go, and don't go to a place in the world that you know about, right? A lot of people go to, like, especially in the United States, you go to Canada, you go to Europe, you don't go to the more seedier parts of the world, right? I'll say go to the safest, seediest parts of the world. Some place in Brazil, Sao Paulo, spend a night there with someone that you know, and or different parts of Asia and stuff. Go to Thailand, beautiful place. I've never been, but I heard it's really beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to Thailand if you could do it. And like, But back to the question though. So the worst thing that I've ever done in my life, in my opinion, I think I took my career too slow. I could have sped up my career, and I could have been much further than I am now if I had just jumped in both feet first. But this goes back to my methodical nature of trying to have a second plan. But if I had jumped in feet first, I would have saved many years, and I would have been much further in my current career and life right now. At this stage of my life, by the way, I'm very far, in my opinion, from who I've met and whatever, I'm pretty far ahead. But I would have been even further, countless further, if I had just jumped in both feet in. So the worst kind of decision making, I think, is just I took too long to jump in both feet. I would have shortened that a lot longer. Make it a lot shorter. So, I moved to the States when I was 28, 29. I probably would have cut that down to 25. When I was 25, I was like, oh, I'm out. I'm going to take this plunge and I'm going to go into this thing. And I think that would have benefited me a lot. And that's one of the, if I had to pinpoint like a conscious decision where I could have changed, and then, that probably would be it. So that's my advice to everyone. Just like jump in, have a lifeline, of course, but whatever your passion is, jump into it, because you never know where it's going to take you, for real. Just do your best, and keep a good head on your shoulders. Yeah.
All right, I want to thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for inviting me to your home,
so
we could do this interview. If anybody wants to get in contact with you on social media, tell me too. Tell them, and then I'll put on the podcast description.
Sure. Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. Instagram has become such a powerful tool. So I really appreciate you guys follow me on Instagram. You can see my training videos, and you can see me do all kind of crazy things and whatever I'm doing in the stunt world. And you can follow me at Casper. That's with a K. Like the friend that goes Casper, but just with a K instead of a C. Casper Stunts on Instagram. And you can, search for me on Facebook, Jason Elwood Hanna. Elwood, that's ELWOOD, Hanna, HANNA. Jason is the first name. And I think right now I'm going to stick to those two things while I figure out what the hell Twitter is. No, I'm joking. I know what Twitter is. But
I have it. I still don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't understand the purpose of Twitter.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, it's I think you're a millennial too, right? Because
I'm not sure if I am a millennial. I think I'm Generation X.
Oh,
I was born in 87.
Yeah, I'm a millennial, and I'm actually older than you.
No, because
you said 87.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're Generation X. Millennial.
That started like 82, 83.
Yeah. Millennials actually started in 82, 83.
Oh, I don't want to be one.
Oh yeah, but
I thought I was Generation X.
But there's because it usually lasts 15 years, right? Mm-hmm. So after 2000, like the new breed of they're the non-millennials. Mm-hmm. They are Generation Y, but the media kind of just puts everyone together.
The cohort, yeah, it's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a bad thing. It makes us all kind of look bad, but we are the forefront of technology. So. Yeah, that's a whole nother generation altogether. But
the Tide Pod eating people.
Oh my goodness, crazy. But as a why did I get on that? Anyway,
I forgot why we got on.
Yeah, but we're millennials, and I forgot how I got on that. But anyway, yeah.
No, because we're talking about Twitter.
Oh yeah. So for our section of millennials and those 80s, like 80s kids, we are not adapting to certain social media things like even younger people are like. So Twitter is one of those things. You're just the same thing you said. I do not understand the purpose of it, but it's essential, like for promoting yourself and just communicating now. So I guess I'm gonna have a Twitter feed and I'll update you guys. Yeah, but my Instagram again, Casper Stunts, STUNTS. That's Stunts, Casper Stunts, and follow me on Facebook, Jason Elwood Hanna.
Yeah. I'll put the Instagram handle on the episode description so you guys can find it a little easier.
Yeah.
Thank you again for doing this.
Thanks so much, man. It was fun. Thank you.
Come check out ataboolife.com where you can read some interesting articles or stories, poems, other episodes of podcasts. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys, and have a good night.
Yeah, boy.
Oh, wait, so